Hello, welcome to Rising Technologies. This is Harish. You are watching part 18 of Core Java video tutorial. In this session, we are going to learn about string class, various constructors of string class, string concatenation, and few methods of class string. Remember this key rule: every string literal is an object of class string in Java. That means if I enclose welcome at Rising Technologies in a pair of double quotes, this thing itself is an object of type string. Now look at this sample piece of code. I have this s1 reference variable of type string and I am assigning this quoted string to this s1. We have already seen in Java we need to use a new operator to create an instance of any class, but I am not using new operator over here. So why this statement is a valid statement in Java? Because whenever you specify a string literal, Java creates an object of class string for this literal. So when this statement executes behind the scene, Java creates this s1 reference variable and object of class string, and this object contains this particular data, and this s1 reference variable is going to refer to the same object. Now if I print this s1, it will print this data. Now let's see this in practical. I have already typed this piece of code. I have this string s1 reference variable that contains this particular data, and I am printing this s1. Let's compile this and run this. Now look at the output. This s1 reference variable is going to point to the object that contains welcome at Rising Technologies. If you want, you can create an object using string constructor also. Now look at this line. I am creating a string object by executing its constructor, and I am passing the string literal as a parameter to the constructor. These both lines has the same effect. Here itself Java creates an object of the string, and in this case I am constructing a new string object by passing this string literal as a parameter to the constructor. Now let's have a look at this particular line of code. I want to create a new string object, so just say new string, and let's pass on this string literal as a parameter to the constructor of class string. Now let's compile this and run this. Now look at the output. We got the same output because these both line of code has the same effect. We have just learned that every string literal is an object. So a string object is automatically created for every string literal. You can call methods directly on quoted string as if it were an object reference variable. Now what I mean by that? This is a string literal that contains rising as its data, and we have just seen that Java creates an object for a string literal itself. So this rising or this string literal is itself an object of type string. So this is the object that contains rising, and string class has a method that is length method, and this length method returns the length of that particular string object. Now if I execute this program, it will print 6 because the length of this particular string is 6. Let's have a practical look at this. So if I say rising, this is an object of class string, and I can invoke any method of string class over this string literal. So let's compile this and run this. Now look at this. It is displaying 6, and that's the length of this particular string. String class has several constructors. One of them is the default parameterless constructor. That means if you want to create a string object and that string is going to contain an empty string, so we can use this form of the constructor. So I can create a string object s1 equals new string, and without passing any data. So it creates a string object. That object is set to empty initially. There is one more constructor that takes a string object as a parameter. So I can pass a string literal to the constructor of this string class. We have just seen this sample piece of code in our last slide. Okay, now there is one more constructor in string class, and this constructor takes a character array as a parameter, and this constructor creates a string object on the basis of the characters that are stored within this array. So let's create a character array first, and suppose this array contains few characters. So this is the character array, and I want to construct a string out of this character array. So what I can do, I can pass this array as a parameter to the constructor of this string class. Now look at the declaration, string constructor that takes the character array. So I am calling the constructor of string class, and I am passing this array as a parameter. Now this S1 is going to contain rising. So compile and run this, and look at the output. There is one more overloaded version of the string constructor that takes the character array as a parameter, the start index, and the number of character you want to include in the string object from this character array. Suppose while constructing a string object, I just want these 4 characters within this string object, so I can specify the start index. So what is the start index of this? So 0, 1 and 2. The index of this particular character is 2, so I'm going to say 2, and I want 4 characters from this particular position, so S, I, N and G. So just specify 4. Now compile and run this program, and this program will print sing. Okay, so this is how we can construct a string object using a character array itself. Sometimes you may have data in a byte array, mostly when you are going to handle ASCII characters. And if you want to create a string object out of that bytes array, you can make use of this overloaded version of string class that takes a byte array as a parameter. So let me change this character array to byte array, and let's store a few ASCII values. So 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70. So 65 is the ASCII code for uppercase A, 66 is for uppercase B, and so on. Now I want to construct a string from the ASCII codes stored within this byte array. So all I need to do is create a string object and pass on your byte array as a parameter. So this is my byte array. I am passing this array to the constructor of string class, and this constructor is going to create a string instance using these ASCII codes. So compile this and run this. Now look at this, A, B, C, D, E, F. There is one more overload that takes a byte array. Again, it's start index and number of characters. So suppose I want to construct a string from this array from this particular position to this particular position. So the index number of this particular ASCII code is 2 again. So I'm going to say comma 2, and I want to use 4 characters from this bytes array. So with all these changes, compile and run this. Now look at this, C, D, E and F. These are the characters that are created in this string array in this string object from this byte array. There is one more overload that takes a string buffer object, another overload that takes a string builder object as a parameter. Let's have a look at these two overloaded versions. Suppose I have a string builder object equals new string builder, and I am passing this string as a parameter to the string builder constructor. And now I want to create a string object using the string that is stored within this string builder. So all I need to do is just pass on this string builder as a parameter to the constructor and the constructor of string class will take the string from the string builder and it will create a new string instance out of that. So compile and run this and look at the output. This S1 object is now containing this string. Similarly, I can use this overloaded version that takes a string buffer as a parameter. So instead of this string builder, let me create an object of string buffer. And let's construct a string object by passing this string buffer as a parameter. So compile and run this. Now look at the output. It also has the same string. So there are several overloaded versions. In your practical examples, you can make use of any of this overloaded version of string class to create the string object. Now the next thing is string concatenation. So this plus operator concatenates to string and produces a string object as a result. It also allows you to chain together a series of plus operations. Now look at this. Suppose I have these three separate instances of string class. First instance contains Rising, second instance contains Tech, and third instance contains Aurangabad. Now I want to create one more string object by concatenating all this data, so I can chain together this plus operator and concatenate the data from all these string instances. Now if I print this S, it will print Rising, Tech, Aurangabad. Let's have a look at this. Now I want to concatenate all these strings and construct a new string instance. So R plus T plus A, and let's print this X variable, the object X. So compile and run this. Now look at the output. This is called as string concatenation. This plus operator can concatenate string with other types as well. Now look at this. Suppose I have these two integer variables n1 and n2, and these integer variables contains this integer variable contains some numbers. And suppose now I want to say result is an addition of these two things, and I want to print that result. Let's have a look at this. Integer n1 equals 3, integer n2 equals 5, and string result equals result is plus n1 plus n2, and let's print this R. Compile this and run this, but look at the output. The expected output is result is 8, because these n1 and n2 are integer variables, and I want these integer values to be added first, and then that addition should be concatenated to result is, but it is not printing result is 8, instead it's printing result is 35. So why is that? Operator precedence clause, the concatenation of result is with the string equivalent of 3, that means n1. So it is producing a string that is result is 3. Then this result is concatenated with the string equivalent of 5. So result is 3 plus 5. So it is printing result is 35. So in order to print result is 8, all I need to do is just enclose parenthesis for this expression, so that this parenthesis will first execute and the outcome of this expression will be concatenated to the string. So let's make this change. Now compile and run this. So it is displaying result is 8. So this is how you can perform string concatenation of a string object and other types as well. Now there are various methods in string class. Let's have a look at few of them. One of the important method is length method, and now look at the declaration. This length method returns an integer. So this length method actually returns length of given string. So suppose I have this string and I want to print its length. So all I need to do is just call its length method and it will return the length of the string instance. See, this is the length 11 of this particular string data. Now sometimes we need to extract a character from a string instance itself, so we can make use of this method, that is charAt method. And look at the signature. This method takes an integer index as a parameter and this method returns a character back. So suppose I have this string and I want to extract this s from this string instance, so I'm going to say r dot charAt, and this charAt method expects an integer index as a parameter. So the index of this s is 0, 1 and 2. So I'm going to say charAt 2. And now let's print this character. With these changes compile and run, and now look at this, it is printing s, that is the character at given index number. There is one more method, that is concat method. This method takes a string object and it returns a new string by concatenated existing string with this string specified. Let's have a practical look at this. I have this string, that's r. I want to create a new string object by concatenating this string to the existing string. So this string x instance is going to contain rising and tech. Now let's try to print this. And run this. Now look at the output. It is printing rising tech. It is as good as using plus operator. It is just a convenient method. You can make use of either this plus operator or you can go for that concat method. These both programs are going to produce the same result. There is one more method, trim method. This method do not take any argument, but it runs a string object back. Actually, the job of trim method is to remove leading and trailing spaces from a string instance. Suppose I have this string object that contains r. Let's try to print this r. Look at this. I have included several spaces before the string and after the string as well. Now if I run this, now look at the output. It has printed those blank spaces as well. What if I want to remove these leading and trailing spaces from this string instance? So all I need to do is just call its trim method r.trim. Remember, this trim method is not going to modify this r object itself. This r object is still going to contain the same string, but it will return a new string object by removing all these unwanted spaces. And I'm assigning that new object to this x variable. Let's print this x. Now look at the output. Even our r contains few spaces before and after rising, but when I trim that, it has removed leading as well as trailing spaces, and this x contains this particular string. If I just want to print that trimmed string, all I can do is just say r.trim. Now look at this. It has removed all the spaces from the string instance. Sometimes we need to convert a string to either uppercase or lowercase. So string class has these two methods for this job. The toLowerCase method converts the string into lowercase and it returns that string back. Similarly, this toUpperCase method converts the string into uppercase and returns that newly created object. So suppose this is the string object that I have. This object contains some data and I want to convert this to lowercase. So I'm just calling this toLowerCase method over this string instance. Now look at this. Within this whole string, this R character was in uppercase or capital. This toLowerCase method has converted this string to completely lowercase. Now similarly, I can make use of toUpperCase method, and this toUpperCase method is going to convert this string to uppercase. Now look at the output. String class has several other methods as well. We are going to discuss about those methods in our next session. Thank you for watching. For more details, visit our official site, that is risingtechnologies.in. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel.